Hi gamers, and welcome to a revisitation of my NES game collection. Back when I started making videos on YouTube in 2009, I did a video of each of my separate console game collections, the NES being among them. But of course in those 4 years I've gotten way more games, and I've shown those games in my recent collecting videos, but I thought it's high time to do a recap of what I got for the NES here. And after this video I'm gonna be doing all my other console collections as well, so round 2 coming up. But I decided to start on the NES because it is a very dear console to me, and I think for many other gamers and collectors as well. Many of us started with the NES. It was our first console, so it has a very dear place in my heart, of course. But here we have, I think, 56 games for the NES, all in alphabetical order, so let's check it out what I have here. First up, a Barker Bill's Trick Shooting, a light gun, a zapper game. Of course, if you ask people what zapper games they know, Duck Hunt is of course the first game that they say, but there were quite a few of these light gun games on the NES, slightly less known than Duck Hunt, but still great fun to zap through. Then we have Batman, a real classic. Everybody either owned this game back in the day or knew somebody who owned this and played it that way. I'm part of the ladder company. A friend of mine had this game and I played this to death. Great music, great action, a true NES classic. Bigfoot. My wife, she's not a gamer, but anymore, because back in the day she, like many other families, had an NES, and she had quite a few games for it, Bigfoot being one of them, and she said that she'd like to play Bigfoot again, so I got one for her. We played it, and she actually kicked my ass in this game. I have no idea how I was driving so badly, but yeah, I guess she had a bit of an advantage, but it was really fun to play a game with her. So Bigfoot, nice off-road action there. Bionic Commando, an arcade game by Capcom originally, but this NES version is it's a whole different game than the arcade version. Blades of Steel. I'm not a big fan of sports games, but Blades of Steel it's probably my favorite sports game. Some really funny hockey action here, my favorite being that if you get into a fight, the loser goes to the penalty box, not both of you, so that's some great hockey for you. Then Blaster Master. To me it's one of the greats on the NES, but I don't think it's that known by all. A game by Sunsoft, great varied gameplay. You have these side-scrolling sections with a car, and then you have these top-down adventure sections where you walk with the main character here in mazes and beat bosses. Excellent music, as do many NES games have, but this is a really fun game from my childhood. Then a significant trio of games: Castlevania, Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, and the rarest of the bunch, Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse. My copy is in a really bad condition, but still complete with box and manual, as are all of my games. The first game being a bit straightforward, while the second Castlevania introduced some branching paths and was a precursor to the Castlevania adventure games that we know now, so not just action but great adventure as well. Excellent games. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Capcom had the Disney license on the NES, and they made quite a few really excellent games. This is one of the better co-op games, and two players can play on the at the same time, so that's a really great game to play if there's two players. Dr. Mario, never as good as Tetris, not by a long shot, but still a unique take by Nintendo on the a puzzle genre. With Mario, of course. Mario makes everything better. Then we have a separate release of Duck Hunt. Of course, everybody knows the dual cart here, Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt. This is I don't have a box for this because this was included with the console. It was in a bundle. Like I think many got this game as their first game, but also got to have the Duck Hunt as a separate release as well. I'm a collector after all. More ducks. Another Disney game by Capcom. Not sure if there's anything to be said about DuckTales. It's really a classic, one of the best soundtracks on NES games, but Capcom did a lot of great music on the NES, and let's see how the HD remake fares when it comes out on modern consoles. Then Final Fantasy, the first and original, came out on the NES, and it was a great thing that it was released in English, and in the US it wasn't released in Europe at all, but so this is a US copy, and the other two Famicom games were never released on the NES in the West, so this is the only game on the that has been released in English. Startropics Legend, of course. Flintstones, The Rescue of Dino and Hoppy, really proves that great puzzle game, platforming games, great looking platforming games, great playing platforming games aren't just the exclusive to Nintendo and Capcom, and other companies knew how to make them as well. Gauntlet 2, one of the games that used the 4-player adapters, and of course I got one of those and enough controllers if I'm lucky enough to have 3 friends over at my house, and Gauntlet 2 is it's a great dungeon crawler, and pretty straightforward, not really much puzzling, but it has great atmosphere. Love the sound effects, and the narrator voice is of course legendary nowadays. Then we have High Speed, a pinball game by Rare. Rare did quite a few games for the NES as well, usually released by some other company other than Nintendo, that is. They didn't really hit it off until the Super Nintendo, and it actually looks better on the back here than it plays. It's an okay pinball game, not that there's that much competition on the NES, but still a game by Rare, so good stuff. Capcom wasn't the only company making Disney games on the NES. Virgin did them also, and Jungle Book is an okay platformer. Kickoff. Not much to say about this. It's a football game. Basically, I only own this because it's an SCN version, and which means Scandinavian. It has the Finnish and Swedish manual here, and many people collect only the SCN versions over here in the in North Europe. So there are highly desirable copies of the games. And yeah, just figured I don't have enough SCN games, so I decided to keep this in my collection, even though I'm not really a big fan of football games. Roughly a little less than half of all my games on the NES are SCN versions. Kirby's Adventure, the first game in the series, started on the NES. And, oh, sorry, no, Kirby is back. Of course, it started on the black and white Game Boy. This was the second game in the series, but still a real classic made by HAL Laboratories. Now we're getting the good stuff, Legend of Zelda. It was really something else. Non-linear gameplay, battery backup, saved your games. It really was one of the quintessential adventure games back in the day, and still a real classic that it really is a joy to play even to this day. One of the most influential games ever, not just on the NES but all over. Then we have Little Nemo, the Dream Master, another really great platformer by Capcom. And the thing here was that you could ride these different animals and get some variety in the platforming that way. I remember that I never owned this, but I almost finished it. When I was a kid, I was hospitalized for a short period of time, a week or two, and luckily it was contagious. So they had an NES and a TV and this game in the children's ward there, and I asked if I could get the TV and NES to my room so I could play it, and they agreed, and I was the only kid there who played the NES during that time, so I was really lucky, and I have a really fond memories of this game, even though I never owned it. Then we have a really significant games here, game series. The first Megaman, Megaman 2, Megaman 3, 4, and sadly I don't yet have Megaman 5, and here we have Megaman 6. 5 is the rarest and most valuable of the bunch here. Megaman 6 is the only one that wasn't released in Europe, so this is a US version. But still, I don't know, I really can't say enough good things about Megaman. It's one of those true exclusives to the NES. You know, Castlevanias and Metal Gears by Konami they were originally released on other systems, but Mega Man debuted on the NES, and a whopping 6 games released for it, and fantastic music, fantastic action, really tough gameplay. The Mega Man, the whole series, it's as essential as it gets to an NES collector and gamer both. If you were wondering what this is a rental box used here in the North Europe. Again, these SCN versions here. Some people collect these. I used to have quite a bit of more of these rental cases, but I decided that the normal boxes take less room, so I got rid of all but one. I decided that I'm gonna save one for myself, because it is a nice little curiosity here. and yeah, one of the games that I haven't managed to get back. I had it as a rental version, but haven't really gotten it as a normal version yet. Is Shadowgate, but I'm gonna talk about Shadowgate here a little as well. It's one of the finest adventure games on the NES. This text-based, not an action game, a puzzle game, an adventure game. Really excellent graphics, fantastic music, one of my favorite soundtracks on the NES, so I really have to get Shadowgate back one of these days. Moving on, Metal Gear, like I said with the on the Megamans there, it was released on the MSX first, but it's still a really something that the NES can be proud of, to have been included in the beginnings of such a great series. Metroid. Metroid, it's really a unique Nintendo game in that yeah, sure, most Nintendo games were really cute and cuddly, but Metroid, it was really gritty and grimy, and you were all alone there on the dark corridors there, fighting monsters and dying horribly alone there. So it really has a unique atmosphere, especially as far as Nintendo games go, and basically has spawned a genre of itself with the non-linear progression, and you know, when you get a new ability, you can access other areas and such basically perfected in Super Metroid, and I really don't think it has been surpassed by any other game after Super Metroid. Castlevania Symphony of the Night comes close, but yeah, it all started with Metroid. Mission Impossible, another not really a classic game on the NES, but one that I owned as a kid, so I have really fond memories of it. I really like the varied gameplay with shooting, action, and you know, there's skiing and jet skiing and driving, all sorts of things, and 3 different main characters here with different abilities, so great action adventure. NES Open Tournament Golf. It's a golf game with Mario. Not much to say about that. Oh, almost forgot. Here go alphabetically. My only Famicom game, Pinball. Had to pick at least one Famicom game while I was over at Japan. So nice little small boxes here on the Famicom. But then on to Probotector. Mario's and Zelda's aside, I would say that Probotector it really is close to being my favorite NES game. It's such a tight little package. It's, well, of course the graphics are great. The music it's really fantastic. But the gameplay, it's really, I actually played this through a couple of years ago. I tried it. I didn't even use the 30 lives code here, and it really is a masterpiece of tight gameplay. The levels are so fantastically designed, and the controls are absolutely perfect. Truly a huge classic on the NES. If you're wondering what Probotector is, it's the same thing as Contra in the US. It was the main characters here were censored into being robots because I don't know, maybe somebody in Germany thought that humans shooting aliens is too much, so we had robots shooting aliens. Pro Wrestling, another one of those games from my wife's childhood, so had to get these. Well, when she said that, what's the wrestling game with a guy with a star in his face? So I knew it that it's of course this game. So and some classic memes here as well. A winner is you. Google it if you don't know what it is. Silver Surfer. I got curious of this game when I saw it on AVGN. I think AVGN really has some true power over which games are sought after on eBay. I think many people bought Silver Surfer and many other games that he's reviewed after he did it. And yeah, this is of course this is a really hard game, really unfair. But it's also it doesn't even feel like an NES game. Because it is quite sophisticated, you know, the subject matter and the way it's handled, the music, it's quite complex. It's a really cool game that takes itself seriously, and well, the AVGN of course made fun of it, but it is really better than what its reputation is. Great little game. The Simpsons, Bart vs. Space Mutants. A couple of Simpsons games came out on the NES, and I think this is the better one of those, and more fun as well. Good stuff. Snake, Rattle and Roll, another game by Rare. Really cool graphics. This isometric view always works. It's a reminiscence of Rare's old games, which many were isometric as well, but this is quite a unique game. You play as a snake, eating stuff up and making yourself longer and fatter, so you can advance to the next stage. But some nice. It's basically a platform game, but also some action thrown in as well. Snake's Revenge, not to be mixed up with Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, because this is on the MSX. This is a completely different game, released only on the NES and not made by Hideo Kojima, and as such not really part of the official canon, but still a cool game to have on the NES. Startropics. This is really one of the finer examples of how Nintendo, they really have something up their sleeve as well. People always say that Nintendo does the same game series over and over again, but Startropics might be something to prove the naysayers otherwise. It's a really big adventure game, quite unique in its setting and atmosphere. But yeah, there was Startropics and a sequel on the NES, but hasn't seen any other games since. The series hasn't seen any other games since, so maybe someday we'll get a new Startropics. It's a high time. Next up, Super C, also known as Probotector 2 here in Europe, and really, in my opinion, not as good as the first game. I'm not sure if it's the top-down sections. I do prefer the side-to-side sections and the into the screen sections of the first game, but it is still good that they tried some other gameplay here as well. But I do prefer the first game, but still this is truly one of the best action games on the NES by far. Now stepping into the truly legendary section here, although I already showed you the Duck Hunt Mario Bros. Double cart there, but here is Super Mario Brothers as a separate release as well. There really isn't too much that can be said, or too little that can be said of this game. It started a genre which was the most popular thing on consoles for a decade at least, and yeah, only other games of the same series managed to surpass the previous ones. So Nintendo truly was the master of platforming, and still is. Super Mario Bros. 2, of course, was a little sidestep in the series, but of course this wasn't originally a Mario game, but you can Google that story up, but if you don't know it already, but Super Mario Bros. 2, it's really a great game, and it's fantastic that they had had the balls to do something completely different from the first game, and as such, Mario Bros. 2, it's already a classic by that measure, but an excellent game in its own right. Make no mistake about that. But still, both of those games don't hold a candle when you're talking subjectively. Super Mario Brothers 3 is it's really hard to even understand that this was released on the same platform as the other games. This is so advanced. There is some people prefer Super Mario World as the best Mario platformer, and some people think that Mario Brothers 3 is the best, and again, I am part of the latter group here. And but the fact that this made it as early as it did, Nintendo really put everything that they knew into this game. It's one of the biggest classics and the best sequels that the gaming world has ever seen. Super Offroad, another one of those 4-player games. Great fun with 3 friends. This is a single screen off-road driving game, and I like the fact that between rounds you can buy better tires, better shocks, more nitro. So there's a little development aspect of the game there, but really great fun. One of my favorite driving games on the NES. Yet more Capcom Disney collaboration here. Tailspin. It's almost like a shoot 'em up, basically. So not just a platformer this time. Capcom mastered other genres as well. Then we have Tecmo Cup Football game, but this isn't a traditional football game. It's actually more like an RPG. So kudos to Tecmo for thinking outside of the box and coming up with something quite unique. Then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Of course, everybody had this game back in the day because Turtles were the biggest thing there was for a while, and this game truly was a dream come true for a Turtles fan. There were a total of 3 Turtles games on the NES. I don't have the other 2, but of course they are on my shopping list, as are a million other games. But the first game here, it's quite different. The other 2 are like scrolling beat 'em ups, and this is more like an adventure game with, of course, lots of action. But all are classics, of course. Tom and Jerry, pretty mediocre platformer, not much to say about that. To the Earth, another light gun game. This time it's a space shooter, so something a bit different. Then Konami's Sports Classic Track and Field 2. Great number of varied track and field sports here, and especially great fun playing with friends, trying to outdo the other. Excellent stuff. Then one of the bigger hits by Rare in the NES days, Wizards and Warriors, and there were a total of 3 games on the NES. I don't have the third, but here we have Wizards and Warriors 2, Iron Sword, with Fabio here on the cover. One of the best covers of any game, for sure, and really great fantasy-themed platforming adventure games. So great action and spells and villages and shops and the lot. Excellent games. Wrath of the Black Manta, pretty mediocre action game. Lots of better on the NES, but still. Shoot 'em up Xevious, and I think it's fun to see that the game is made by Namco and published by Bandai here years before they became the same company. So nice to see that they made some cooperation back in the day as well. And finally, last game of this video, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. Even though it wasn't really planned as such with the Super Mario Brothers series, here is the second game of the Zelda series. It's equally a departure from the first game, like Mario 2 was from Mario 1, and mostly as Zelda 1 was a top-down view, this is a side view mostly, but also had some heavier RPG elements like levels and leveling up and different stats. So it was really nice to see that Nintendo, truly pushed what they were doing, not just do the same thing over and over again, until of course they found the perfect formula with I think in Super Nintendo's Link to the Past, especially as far as the 2D Zeldas go. That's the pinnacle of the series. But still, Zelda 2, it's I think the least liked Zelda game. But still, it has quite a special place in my heart, just by being so unique, and has some great varied atmosphere. And gotta love the game over screen with Pig Ganon laughing at you, and you just want to push start and go show Ganon what he's due for. Oh, almost forgot, these two, they were separated from the others. Here we have Faxanadu, still sealed in this VGA case here. I did own Faxanadu as a kid, but I'm really happy to have this sealed copy now. Never finished the game though, quite difficult. It's a bit like Zelda 2 with the side view, really an enjoyable adventure game. And finally here something a bit special, Athletic World, which came with the Family Fun Fitness exercise mat, running mat. Quite expensive games, the others which used the mat, but this came with the mat and is by far the most known of the games, especially here in Finland. There was actually this primetime game show called Speden Spelit, in which celebrities competed in various exercises, and playing Athletic World on the NES was one of those exercises, so it was weird. You could watch grown people playing NES once a week on Finnish television, so that was good times. And that is it for my NES game collection. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more of these revisitations of my other game collections. Bye.